date myself a little bit, good. If I can date myself slightly, I was at the dedication of the land on which that building has been
Wow.
built. And I remember it well because Craig Biggio was part of the opening and the bishop and it was an interfaith series of prayers
Nice.
beforehand. And I was able to get a signed baseball for my son.
All right.
That was
Great.
important stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it was quite an auspicious occasion to do the groundbreaking.
Thank you for sharing that.
I can't remember what year it was, but it goes back a few years.
It was, well, our open house was in October of 1999. So I would imagine it would have been 98 when you did 97, 98 when the groundbreaking was
Yeah,
done.
no, was it?
And there
It might
was
have been.
nothing around here back then.
Yeah, right, right. I remember. Uh,
Thank you for sharing that little bit of history.
well, if you live long enough, you've got a lot of stories.
That's true. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. And Rabbi Shaw, if you would start for us, please.
So I'm my role here, and then I'm going to sit back and listen to everyone with great interest. Is just to welcome everyone and do so on behalf of our overall project, which is the World Interfaith Harmony Week. And just to give you a little bit of background, this is an initiative of the United Nations that began in 2010 at the behest of King Abdullah II of Jordan. So he proposed this idea of having a week of interfaith harmony, which the General Assembly of the UN subsequently passed unanimously, and it's been taking place ever since. Approximately, I would estimate in the neighborhood of 1,500 organizations around the world participate in this annually. And it's really become an opportunity for people of faith and people who engage in community service to have their work highlighted. We do so many good things, and we don't always get the focus that we deserve. But the Interfaith Harmony Week is an opportunity to bring those to the fore, to bring them into the public view, and to have them not only recognized but also have them supported and have people recommit to helping further these lofty goals. So I'm very pleased that everyone's doing part of this, and Catholic Charities in particular. Just another note. So the American Leadership Forum is the convener of this week-long or 10-day-long program. And this is a really opportunity for the American Leadership Forum as a nonprofit leadership organization to further its work of bringing diverse leaders together to collaborate for the common good. So it's been an honor to work under the leadership of Nori Angel, the president of the American Leadership Forum, to help organize this really incredible week of varied activity. We've had a program at the Houston Food Bank. We opened at the Contemporary Arts Museum with a panel discussion inspired by the work of Vincent Valdez. And if you haven't gone there, I really highly recommend you do so. We had a campus program last night. We had a harmony walk yesterday morning, and we celebrated the 60th anniversary of Nostra Aetate with the Cardinal on Wednesday night. That was the document in 1965 from Vatican II that opened up a new chapter in the relationship between Catholics and Jews and Catholics and world religions. So we've done a lot of good things. We've got coming up tomorrow evening, we have a concert. The River Oaks Chamber Orchestra will be doing a concert called Courageous. Sunday, we have a museum program at the Eternal Gandhi Museum. And then the concluding program is on Monday at 12:30 at the Ismaili Center in Sugar Land. So if you have time and are interested, please feel free to join us for the remaining programs. But thank you to Catholic Charities today for hosting this important program. And thank you all for being online with us.
Thank you, Rabbi Shaw. I'm Rhonda Sepulveda. I am the Parish and Government Relations Coordinator here at Catholic Charities, and I have the honor of being moderator today. And we have our panelists here. Everybody's on. So Rabbi Shaw has already introduced himself. Thank you so much. And then we're going to have Cynthia Colbert's online, Peg Harmon with Catholic Charities USA, Sister Maureen O'Connell, and Wafa Abdin. So, Peg, if you would start your introduction, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how, just share.
Yeah, just a comment about the theme today. My little name says Marguerite, but most people know me as Peg Harmon. I spent my pretty much my entire adult life working for the Catholic Church in Catholic Charities here in the Diocese of Tucson. I eventually became the diocesan director. Upon my retirement, a little over 2 years ago, I was Peggy Rizzi, who is the Vice President of Programs and Services, reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in joining Catholic Charities USA as a consultant to move forward on a project called Team Up. And I'll be talking a little bit about Team Up and bridge building in a little bit here. My thought about the theme for today, Stronger Together, I could not think of a better theme to align with World Faith Harmony Week than this theme. And my only reflection is that we need to acknowledge, as we do, and as this opportunity emphasizes, that our voice and our actions are always stronger when we recognize our shared values and we stand together for good and for faith and for charity.
Thank you so much, Peg, for sharing that. Sister Maureen. Please introduce yourself, your faith tradition, your organization, and describe your thoughts on the theme today.
I'm Sister Maureen O'Connell. I'm a Dominican sister, and I am the director of the Secretariat for Social Concerns for the Archdiocese of Galveston-Houston. And I guess for me, this whole idea is so critically important given the environment that we're living in. I think that there's such a value shown in dividing people and putting people in this camp or that camp, for saying that, it's those people or these people. And for me, this whole week and this whole idea that we can work together. And as Peg said, as we work together, we know that that's where the power is. And so rather than be diverted by much of the noise that surrounds us, for me, having an opportunity to really focus on who we are and what we believe, and the fact that we all believe the same thing. Oh, I forgot that I'm a Catholic. I think I didn't say. Yeah, I'm Catholic. But again, I think the idea of the common good is something that every faith dimension shares, regardless of Muslim, Christian, Jewish. It's the common good. And I think the more we can focus on the strength that we have in working for the common good, the better we'll be able to serve and to really try to put out the noises that surround us with the other issues. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That's a very good perspective. Morgan.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Morgan Zeringue. I serve as a director of program services at Jewish Family Service, Alexander Jewish Family Service. We are located in the Southwest Houston area. As it relates to disaster response and navigation, I've been doing this work since Hurricane Katrina and built and implemented a disaster program in 2015 for Alexander Jewish Family Service. And really around the theme for today, they quickly recognized and implemented the need to collaborate and connect with different spiritual and community leaders in our Houston area to be able to better serve the community. And so I think it's an important topic, as all of you guys have spoke on today, and it's something that we need now more than ever. So I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing and for being here today. Let's see. Wafa.
Good morning. I'm very excited to be here. I mean, Catholic Charities has been a very important part of my life, but also this topic is so meaningful to me. I would like to, currently I am an asylum officer with the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service. So I have to start with some kind of, disclaimer that I'm here in my own capacity as Wafa, and I'm not representing the government. All my thoughts and whatever I say is really coming from me as Wafa. So, I mean, I also was asked to do that as part of my ethical duty. So this is out of the way here. So in my previous kind of life, I started as an immigration attorney. I went to law school when my kids were teenagers, and my first job was a staff attorney at Catholic Charities, and then I became supervising attorney and director and the vice president for immigration and refugee services. I have spent my entire career in this country, representing immigrants and refugees before the Immigration Service, the Board of Immigration Appeals, and I represented some of the most vulnerable, whether they were, children detained or released, asylum seekers, victims of crime, victim of human trafficking. And I kind of wanted to give a little background of who I am. I was born and raised in Amman, Jordan. My family roots come from Hebron and Jerusalem in the West Bank. So I belong to the oldest refugee in the world. We have more than 3 to 4 generations who are still refugees. And that has always been my passion. I mean, there was not much when I came here to do for my people, but I just really wanted to be able to help those who are in the same, so that's kind of how I started even going to law school and working with refugees and immigrants. My faith tradition is Islam too. And this has really, I think my, background as well as my tradition has really informed my commitment to several things, that I hold very important in my life. I would say commitment to charity, community service, justice for all, and interfaith collaboration. And, this kind of has been really, I would say, the theme of my life. So Islam, like all other faith traditions, really, kind of emphasize compassion, service, helping those in need. And I feel like collaboration in these areas really foster understanding, dispel stereotypes. Being a Muslim, I think we are one of the most misunderstood, misrepresented kind of communities in this country and in other places. And I've always thought that, by engaging with other interfaith groups, by even doing the work, by being the colleague and neighbor, I kind of really present, a different image of Islam. And that's kind of really what has been the driving force for my life.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that and that perspective. And we have lots of questions. And Cynthia's on, and she's going to be a panelist too now. So, hi, Cynthia.
Hi, everyone. Well, thank you to everyone for joining us today. I am a cradle Catholic, being born and raised in the Catholic faith. I have been the head of Catholic Charities now for 13 years, and I've worked for 2 others. So I've been in the Catholic Charities Network for a very long time. I'm really proud of the work that we do as a ministry of the church and as a collaborator in the community, having worked with all of you on the phone Jewish Family Services, we've collaborated together. Certainly the Archdiocese, Catholic Charities USA, talking to and then working with Wafa over many years. I think that we are always stronger together. And that's why I kind of picked the theme when I thought about this topic for the week and what we could bring to the dialogue. There are many things in the world that can separate us, but when we come together around shared values and the shared humanity that we all have, and the concern and care that we have for our neighbors in need, that just makes us stronger. And I think now more than ever, we need to stay strong and stay together. I will say, and I just want to add this caveat, this is not going to be a political event. We are not here to talk about parties or differences. I think we need to talk about commonalities. And I just need to say that for everyone, so this can be a safe space and one in which we celebrate the ways that we have come together over time to address issues. And let me tell you, in Houston, Texas, the question is not if we have a disaster, it's when. And we've had several, ranging from the size of Hurricane Harvey down to the tornado that happened just a month or so ago. And all of those sizes, Catholic Charities is always at the forefront, trying to provide aid. And we couldn't do it alone. It takes collaboration with many others, including many of you on the phone. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, and thank you for sharing that perspective. So I have a question for Peg. Peg, tell us a little bit
has
about.
Morgan introduced herself? Has Morgan?
Yes, she did.
Okay, sorry, Morgan. I came on a little late. I apologize.
Yes, and we're so glad that Morgan is here, and she's going to talk more about disaster recovery in our conversation today. So, Peg, tell us a little bit about the bridge building initiatives with Catholic Charities USA, and give one or two examples of interfaith collaboration.
Okay, I feel like the comments that people have made thus far and what Rabbi chatted about prior to us beginning this gathering was an absolute confirmation of the work that we're doing in bridge building through a project called Team Up. So bridge building is the primary method that we use to implement a national project team called Team Up. And I'll try to do this really quickly. There's a lot of detail here, but I'll try to give you a sense of what the Team Up project is. So it is invested in the power of our values to cultivate cooperation across differences, to create a brighter future for our communities and our nation. We hope to empower people to build the connections they need across differences to help their communities. We aim to create avenues for bridge building by offering tools, resources, programming that equip people and organizations with the skills they need to celebrate differences, identify shared values, and work together to address common needs. The project Team Up was created as a collaboration between the YMCA, Habitat for Humanity International, Catholic Charities USA, and Interfaith America. It began as part of this bipartisan effort called United We Stand. It was a summit that the White House convened in 2022. And the reason it came together was that there was a recognition that there was a need to counter the corrosive effects of hate-fueled violence on our democracy and to create a shared vision for a more united America. Team Up, as a part of Catholic Charities USA, supports bridge building initiatives across the country. We look at intentionally building respectful relationships between people who are different through shared service or activity to address an existing need in a community, what someone referred to as the common good earlier, and to expand an existing opportunity. And we believe that through those efforts, we will reduce distrust and alienation and create positive relationships and foster intergroup understanding. And I'll do a quick summary of a couple of projects that have been funded by Team Up through Catholic Charities USA and our partners that emphasize interfaith relationships in creating the common good. And Rabbi mentioned this again at our when we began this session, right before the session began. Now, Habitat for Humanity, their typical model is that they invite different faith communities to have a Protestant build day, an Episcopalian build day, and a Catholic build day, and so forth. And that had been the standard model. One of the projects that was funded by Habitat through Team Up with Habitat for Humanity in Pikes Peak was to change that model and create an interfaith build. And so just like Rabbi spoke about earlier, the Habitat for Humanity in Pikes Peak put the model on its head and has continued to provide interfaith builds since the first year they did it last year during their initial grant making. There was a project in the city of Austin that brought together people of different faiths through Catholic Charities USA and the YMCA to host faith-based volunteers to support unhoused community members. And they began with a conversation, again, to create relationship between people who might be unhoused and the volunteers who might be supporting them. And at the end of that conversation, they shared a meal and created resources to distribute to people who were unhoused. And in the current year, very quickly, is the Catholic Charities of Omaha is engaging with two other faith traditions. They have an interesting model there. It's a tri-faith campus that serves people who are hungry and supports just food distribution. And they wish to further interfaith collaboration across the community and create dialogues to mobilize a better understanding of how hunger and the need for food and how food is relates to people's culture and sometimes their faith, and create a broader, more culturally sensitive response to the hunger in their community.
So with Team Up, because Catholic Charities in Galveston-Houston was able to be part
Yes.
of the first cohort,
Yeah.
That opportunity was very eye-opening to see all the different aspects, and then but just across the nation, how those things can come together, bring people together, where it was very polarizing before,
Yeah.
and then build something that is that, and there's a playbook, right?
Yes, there are playbooks, and every community, I'm going to emphasize, every community has its own approach, identifies their own priorities. And the playbooks that have been published on the teamup.org website identifies all the projects, the Catholic Charities projects, Habitat for Humanities projects, and the YMCA projects that use the bridge building and Team Up to implement a project for the common good that was identified in their community, in their region.
I was just going to ask you, but Cynthia beat me to the punch, and she added the information, the link in the chat. So if any of you are interested to learn more about that, please see Cynthia's response in the chat. Wafa, question. Islam teaches the importance of giving to the poor and to the needy. How can or does the Islam faith locally collaborate with others in responding to community needs?
So, I mean, this question really is so at this time is even more meaningful to me. Ramadan is going to start the end of this month. And usually during Ramadan, Muslims abstain from food and drink. But more importantly, what is emphasized is the idea of giving and helping. And in the Islamic tradition, we have two main ways that are kind of, represent giving. The first one is called zakah, which is one of the 5 pillars. So each Muslim usually gives 2.5% of their wealth every year. And again, Muslims live in all kinds of countries, with all kinds of rules, and all of them have taxes. So this is not really, this is something that each and every Muslim do give yearly, in addition to whatever other responsibilities they have. The second type of, giving is called sadaqah. And sadaqah is just voluntary. It really encompasses money. It encompasses giving food, clothes, time, or even as small as a smile. So this is kind of really what is the call to every Muslim to be engaged in that. It also, Islam, emphasizes that we all come from Adam and Eve. This, origin unite us and, creates a responsibility towards all of us to be working together, irrespective of our ethnicities or languages. And, there is this emphasis on, the best among you is not, the most influential or, rich, it's the most righteous. So this is kind of really what Muslims aspire to do. Now, in terms of, I have to admit that my last 2 years, I have not been as engaged in the community, but Muslims in Houston have been involved in all kinds of work, whether it's relief after disaster, whether it's food drives, whether it is homeless outreach programs. Also, they have their own faith-based, clinics and educational initiatives, as well as shelters. We have a lot of groups that work with abused spouses and those who have suffered from domestic violence. I'm also on the board of the Arab Cultural and Community Center, and we have been working with refugees, in order to really provide their needs. Because one of the things that is really important to remember, and this is something I think that was mentioned even initially by the rabbi, you talked about, helping a Syrian family. So refugees, they have these organizations that do amazing work. I'm always proud of Catholic Charities, all the other refugee programs. But the ones who really succeeded are the ones who found people who really kind of took them under their wings in order to teach them how to really live in this new, totally different culture in all kinds of ways, small and big. And these are the ones who succeed. So,
thank you so much, Wafa. And she's right. The Islam community did come to Catholic Charities when we were doing the distribution post-disaster. And they came in full force, T-shirts and everything. And they were like, we are here to help. And so thank you for always being the conduit to the Islamic community, Wafa, and for all that you do. Sister Maureen, with so many challenges and uncertainties in the world, why is the concept of interfaith harmony important? And how does Catholic social teaching guide us to collaboration?
Well, to go back to what I said earlier in terms of the common good, because I do believe that our Catholic faith says that we were all, Wafa, as you said it, we were all created by the same creator. We all share in the humanity that each of us has. We share in the gifts of creation. So I think the challenge is to recognize that and to know that it really doesn't matter if one is Muslim or Jewish or zero hair. It doesn't matter, that we are all part of the same creation. And I think for Catholics, I like to say that probably one of the best kept secrets in our faith is Catholic social teaching, because we just assume that that's the way it should be. And it's important that we also don't assume that, but that we say, okay, now what can I do to further that? What do I need to do? Bishop Seitz made a comment about, charity, anybody can do charity, but caring for one another is kind of the bedrock of our faith as Catholics. And I certainly believe that, but I believe it's also the bedrock of all other faiths. There are a few people who just kind of stand aside and say, well, this is us, and we know what. Well, as I say that, I probably should. There are some people who believe that, but anyway, that's not my goal. So I think for me, the importance of continuing to reach out and be engaged in interfaith experiences. I can know everything I need to know about being a Catholic, but I really need to go and be with my Jewish brothers and sisters. I need to be with my Muslim brothers and sisters to learn what is it that they do? What is it? How do they view their engagement in the community? And how do we do that together?
Thank you so much, Sister Maureen. Cynthia also added a link to the 7 themes of Catholic social teaching in the chat. If you're curious about that, those are our foundational principles. And every new employee at Catholic Charities, she ensured that each one of them learns about those foundational principles here in
I have
our
to say
work.
something here, Rhonda, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, for years, I would say I was able to speak about, Catholic social teachings more than many Catholics because it really informed our work with immigrants and refugees. And everybody always thought it was really funny that I really knew all the details about it and was able to kind of express it.
So I have to brag about some of my colleagues in our communications team. So we've always talked about Catholic social teaching here in the office place. Wafa, a Muslim woman, she knew about Catholic social teachings and knew all the principles and could share it just more than probably some Catholics. And so I told my boss Betsy, I said, Betsy, can we have something where somebody can just pick it up and have it? And so what they did is that Talia created this Catholic social teaching accordion brochure, and it has our QR code on the back. And it is just a remarkable little nugget, but it has all of the essential information. And those principles are the life and dignity of the human person, call to family, community, and participation, rights and responsibilities, solidarity, the dignity of work and the rights of workers, care for the poor and vulnerable, and care for God's creation. So, but I just had to brag there for just a moment. Please pardon. Thank you for letting me add that little commercial. Morgan, disaster can affect a people in very significant ways, crossing cultures, income levels, and neighborhoods. How has the Jewish Family Services effectively worked with others in the community to address disaster response?
Sure. So for us, I think there can be a lot of stigma around neighborhoods or income levels. And so a great piece of this is the importance of advocacy in your communities to make sure programs are inclusive of all people. One thing that came up for us after the Memorial Day flood of 2015 is there were a lot of disaster groups that were not going to the Meyerland area because they assumed that people in that area were wealthy and didn't need the support. However, a lot of those families that live in the Meyerland area have lived there for 20, 30 years and then have invested their life's work into their homes. And many of them are seniors and are on very fixed incomes now. And so we had to do a lot of advocacy at the local level with city organizations, as well as with our local UNWIHW. There's a Harris County Long-Term Recovery Group that I am still now on the executive committee, where we joined just to have a voice at the table to be able to advocate for these people who lived in these deemed more, higher end neighborhoods, but that really didn't have the resources. So partnering with local recovery groups and partnering with other interfaith pastoral guidance, and the Westbury Church is a huge partner with us in disaster recovery and response around and getting good information out there. The other thing that we have found in our disaster recovery work is that there's a lot of mistrust in communities around local city governmental agencies when it comes to disaster response. And your faith-based leaders are really the door to getting word out to community about resources that are out there. So doing a lot of advocacy to the local pastors and preachers in our community about reaching those vulnerable folks who maybe are resistant to talking with someone with FEMA, or resistant to talking with someone with with the city because of concerns, whether it's related to documentation status, or if it's related to just, again, general mistrust of these big, large systems. So I think for us, the top one is definitely advocacy. And the second one is definitely collaboration with other faith-based community partners. I often say that it is important to know what you do well. It is even more important to know what you don't do well and partner with people in those areas so that way you can build those bridges and really connect people to the right type of resources. So that has been instrumental for us in kind of growing and building as it relates to disaster response.
Thank you. And we don't always think about advocacy whenever we're thinking about bridge building, but it is the most essential piece of it. So thank you, Morgan, for sharing that.
Rhonda,
Yes.
could I just give a brief little insight into Jewish teachings on charity? Because
Absolutely. Please do.
we've had the privilege of listening to Catholic social teachings and the Islamic perspective. So if I may just in a nutshell, so the word in Hebrew for that's often used for charity is tzedakah. It really is not. It doesn't mean charity. It means righteousness. And so within Judaism, it's an obligation that we have to allocate part of our resources to help those in need. And so it's not a question of whether you give, but more often how much is appropriate from what you have. Interestingly, the rabbis in previous centuries where there were no income taxes, they put a 20% limit on how much you could give, because if you gave too much, you could potentially impoverish yourself and become a recipient. The only other piece that I would put out there for just perspective is there's also a ladder of giving in Judaism, and the highest form of giving is to give another person a job. That would be at the top of the ladder so that they become self-sufficient. The next level, next rung on the ladder, would be where both the donor and the recipient are anonymous. They don't know each other. And that's to prevent a kind of embarrassment or an indignity in terms of the relationship. And then from there, there's just all the way down. Interestingly, even if you give begrudgingly and only after being asked, it still counts to your credit. So the main focus is not necessarily the spirit in which you give it, although obviously that's important, but the fact that you give, because the ultimate goal is to serve and to help those who are in need. Thank you. Sorry.
No, I was going to ask you, but I'm glad you just jumped in.
Good.
That was perfect. Perfect timing. All right. So I have a question for all of you. And anybody can jump in. Can I have about 4 other questions, but let's go with this one first. Can you share an example from your personal life or your work on how interfaith collaboration has made a difference in the community?
I will be happy to start.
Okay.
It's something that is very similar to what is going now. So when I started as a new attorney, there was the Muslim ban. And I don't know if you all remember, refugees were turned away from getting on airplanes. And even if they landed in Houston, our staff would go to meet them, but then they were not allowed in. And to me, it was a really difficult time on many ways. As someone who was working in human rights and believed in the U.S. as the refuge and a place where people came to, it was kind of hard. But it was such an important and really special time because we kind of created this pro bono network of attorneys who were from all faith traditions, who just were, at the airport every single hour of the day and late at night to make sure whenever there was a family that came and nobody could represent, and they were able to be there. I mean, these things is what really brings back your belief in humanity and underscores how much we can do together.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was a dark time in history, I'm sure, for you, because you and I have had those conversations a long time ago. Cynthia.
We work often with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They're also a wonderful support group, and they put on a shower for our refugee clients, a baby shower. So we had several refugee women who were pregnant or had just had babies, and they collected baby items, including bassinets and cribs and car seats and diapers and clothes and all kinds of things. And then they sponsored a beautiful shower for these women shortly after they'd arrived in the U.S. So here you had women of many faiths, traditions, and then we had the Church of Latter-day Saints of Jesus Christ, and then also Catholic Charities, all coming together to help give these babies, a boost with clothes and formula and diapers and many other things. So that was a beautiful thing. The other thing that they have done is at Christmas time, they sponsor a giving box, and it's a a vending machine. So you can go to a vending machine and buy a candy bar. In this case, you can go to a vending machine and make a donation. And they have many different kinds of nonprofits who are listed in there. Catholic Charities happens to be one of them, not this last year, but other years. But every Christmas, they have these vending machines that they place around town near the Christmas time. And then people can easily make a vending machine donation to a nonprofit of their choice. And some of them are faith-based, some are not. But it's a beautiful interfaith effort to support the community. So that's just my example of how working with one faith tradition, but impacts many others.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that is a wonderful experience to have an organization and a church say, hey, we want to band with you and help your clients so that they can increase their self-sufficiency and increase our mission. So thank you, Cynthia. So from the standpoint of your faith tradition, and this is to each of you, what are some of the common themes between faith that can be used as a foundation for combining our collective strengths? And I can repeat the question if you need me to.
I think I'll say that acts of service, the passion amongst all faith communities to want to give back, a Jewish tradition of repairing the world and wanting to make individuals' lives better and stronger together. I think that's a very common theme amongst all faith-based organizations.
Thank you so much, Morgan. That is very true. Anybody else?
I would like to add, in addition to what's been said about Catholic social teaching and the requirements, although they're not as widely understood as some of us would hope, I think about, in our faith tradition, the parable of the Good Samaritan, because what the parable of the Good Samaritan teaches us is that we help not only our neighbor, we help not only our family, we help the stranger who needs us, and we do it without expectation of recognition. I think it was said earlier in the Jewish faith, if you do it anonymously without a recognition. And I think in our Catholic faith, the parable of the Good Samaritan has always been very powerful for me because it reminds me and reminds those of us in the Catholic faith that everyone is our neighbor.
Uh,
Next question. What are the most, do you want to go, do you want to answer that question too?
On what Peg had said, because I think the whole idea of the Good Samaritan is certainly a challenge for us to recognize our neighbor. But I recently read a reflection on the Good Samaritan and what it was like for the victim, what it was like for the person in the gutter. What was it like for someone who had already been thrown aside? Was not anybody of any value? And I think that for me really helps to focus on what the call is in terms of our neighbor. It's not only what can I do for my neighbor, but what is my neighbor needing from me? A little bit, as you said, Morgan, in the Meyerland area, what does my neighbor need? My neighbor, that he or she can't ask for that, but how am I called to pay attention to it? What's my challenge to be aware? And I think it's both doing, but it also has to do with awareness. How do we pay attention to those who are around us?
Can I add something? As someone who studied literature and a really comparative religion, it always strikes me how much we have in common. I mean, for Muslims, usually faith really comes from two main sources, in addition to other things, which is the Quran, which is the holy book, and the tradition and the sayings of the Prophet. And I can't tell you how many, sayings or surahs talk about the neighbor and helping the neighbor. And, when your neighbor, if you sleep and your neighbor is suffering, also the fact of if you harm someone, as if you've harmed the whole world, so this idea, it's all, it struck me. And then when you talk about the person who is on his own, we have a word in Arabic, ibn sabil, the ones who has no resources and he's a total outsider and stranger. That is the person that, helping would be the utmost really actually act of charity, because you don't know him, he's not part of your community, but it is you're doing it because of your shared humanity and your responsibility in this world. We do believe that God has brought us here and we have this responsibility to make the world a better world.
Thank you so much. Rabbi, are you still with us?
You're on.
There you are.
I am. Right
There
here.
you are.
Yeah.
So, what is the most common misconceptions about your faith tradition or faith-based organization? Your faith tradition?
The most common misperception?
Yeah.
You want me to find one?
You can share as many as you like.
Golly, I don't know. Here's in the context of what we're talking about here might be one. So there's the concept of the chosen people that is often been used as a tool to discriminate against us or to assert that Jews think they're superior to other people. So it's based on a misunderstanding of what the word chosen means. So it doesn't mean that we chose to be chosen. It means we were chosen. So the concept is a biblical concept, and it refers to the fact that we were chosen to be the bearers of Torah in the world, to disseminate the Bible, if you will, the Old Testament, as some would call it. So it's not a doctrine of superiority. It's really a doctrine of responsibility. And Jews take that pretty seriously. In fact, one of the Midrashim, the rabbinic stories about how we were chosen was that God went to the Egyptians and said, "Would you like to be the bearers of the Torah?" And they said, "What's in it?" And God said, "Well, thou shalt not steal. And so they said, no, we're not interested. And God went to another people, and they would ask, what's in it? And God would tell them, and they not interested. Finally, after God went to all the peoples of the world, the Israelites, the Hebrews were the last people, and God held Mount Sinai over their head and said, would you like to receive the Torah and be the bearers of Torah? If not, this will be where you will be buried. And with that, the biblical quote is, we will obey and we will do. So that's not exactly a doctrine of being chosen because we were superior, but so I would say that's one of them. Um, uh, Within Judaism, I think one of the highest virtues, as in Catholicism and Islam, is the idea of humility. And I think all the work that we engage in really requires a high measure of humility in what we do. Not to look upon others as being less fortunate, and we're more fortunate and more capable and superior in certain ways to the people that we're providing help to. So I think that's an important thing. So that I would start with the chosen people misconception. How's that? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And if
That's
I
a
can
good one.
piggyback just related
Yes.
to misconceptions within Jewish Human Service Agency, as well as access to service and stigmas around that. So one big misconception is and we've come a long way in the last 5 years or so, was that Jewish Family Service was only designed to support Jewish people. And I'm sure that many people who work for organizations like Catholic Charities, right? Then maybe I wouldn't feel comfortable coming and asking for help, because I would assume that you would only serve people from a Catholic background. And so we've done a lot of advocacy, a lot of changes in our mission statement to help people understand that we serve people from all backgrounds, but that our guidance and our mission really comes and thrives through Jewish values. The other misconception as it relates to the Jewish people that I hear a lot is this misconception that all individuals who are Jewish are wealthy or come from wealth. And so then maybe they don't need these type of social services because money can fix it, right? And so I think that that's also a big misconception that I have seen in my time here, and also try to build bridges around making sure it's equal access to services for people regardless of income, and that you are just as worthy of receiving or accessing a service in your time of need, regardless of your income level. So things like mental health support. There can be a feeling that, oh, well, I want to allow individuals who don't have access to that service or don't have, the funds to pay for that service to receive it. And so I don't want to take from anyone else. And so the idea that we all need to be healthy and we all need to be well to be able to build a better community, and your income status, it doesn't determine your access to be able to receive quality service.
I would just add for sure that at Catholic Charities, there is a misconception out in the community. Oh, you only serve Catholics, or you have to be Catholic to work there. I mean, that's another misconception. Or there's one that, well, I'm Catholic, so I should get priority service over everybody else. And so, when people come in, we're here for the community. We're here to serve. We serve people of all faith traditions, or sometimes no faith tradition, because we serve out of our faith tradition, not to proselytize and make somebody a Catholic, right? In fact, Pope Benedict in his letter to the church in Deus Caritas Est makes that very clear. I would say Pope Francis as well, right? We serve out of this faith. And sometimes, the work, and probably you would agree, those of you other faith traditions, sometimes you're more changed by the work than the people who receive it, because we're made more compassionate. We're made, our eyes are open to the plight of others. We're made more compassionate and caring. And especially when I do join in projects with other people of other faith traditions, I am much more appreciative of their perspective of the world. And the ties that bind are stronger than those that divide. And that's what I've come to from all of this in my interfaith work is there is so much more that joins us than divides us. And if we focus more, I think of, today in the world, and, we're our Bible says we're to be peacemakers. And I'm sure those of other faith traditions have words to that effect, and yours were to be peacemakers. Well, to do that, I think we have to recognize what you've already said, the humanity of one another, but the things that join us as opposed to separate us. And there's so much more that joins us, separates us, and that's what we need to always focus on, I think, is those things that bring us together then divide us.
Cynthia.
Add a little bit about the misconceptions, because we do have a lot. So, I mean, if you watch the movies or even the news, you always have this image of the Muslims as, hardcore, kind of jihadists who are really there to harm and kill and all of that. And I just, kind of always tell people the word Islam comes from the root of Arabic word of two things: submission, which is a total submission to God, and the other one is salam, which is peace. And the greetings of Islam is always, the greetings, be peace upon you. That's how we greet each other and other people. The other thing that is always, always misunderstood is the concept of jihad. I mean, jihad has so much meaning within Islam that it is said that the hardest kind of jihad is your jihad with yourself, to be able to do the good deeds and be the best person you are. And even in terms of engaging in jihad, it's always supposed to be for protection of your loved ones. And also, there are so many rules. I mean, there is this kind of sermon by the first Khalifa of Islam when they were going to war. He asked them, don't cut a tree, don't kill an animal, don't hurt a child. All of these things are, I think lots of times are misunderstood just because of, I mean, every religion has its own, kind of brand of being intolerant. And there's also a very important thing as a woman for me. It's the perception that women in Islam are subjugated. I mean, lots of people used to ask me, did you become outspoken when you came to this country? And I find this to be really funny because, I remember myself as a kid, and it was my dad who loved this. I mean, I've always been somebody who advocated for justice. And one of the very important experiences I had, I was invited to a Seder dinner. And I met a group of Jewish ladies and some Christian ladies who did that together. So we started with this called Pink Iftar. And it was kind of scheduling an iftar in Ramadan, where we invite people from all traditions and just talk about our, traditions during Ramadan, eating, and also our life. And I felt like, I got to know so much about others, and it really kind of opened the door for friendships that lasted. And we used to do this in the Christ Church Cathedral. And I remember the first time we had to do the adhan because, which is the call for prayer, which, kind of signifies now you can eat. Having it in a church, I mean, I cried that day, which is so really beautiful, being surrounded, but women who were Jewish, Christian, from all faith traditions. And as Cynthia also said, no faith tradition too. I feel that this work is so important because it does misspell a lot of these misconceptions. You only know people once you know someone from that tradition, I would say, and come to know them as a human being.
Thank you so much, Wafa. I remember you inviting us to the Pink Iftar, and so when it happens again, please let us know. But I also do remember the pain in one of the comments that you made to me so many years ago is that when 9/11 happened, those terrorists not only hijacked a plane, but they hijacked what the perception of the world thought about your faith tradition. And that to me always has stayed in my heart. And I appreciate all of the things that you've shared throughout the years about your faith. So thank you. So let's get back to these questions. Based on what we've shared today, what advice would you have for participants in working with others to impact or improve the community? Anybody?
Peg, I would love to hear from you about what you're seeing around the country. You know, you have the benefit of seeing all these projects of bridge building, and in particular, they're like breaking down barriers or effective collaboration. What are you learning from these various projects?
So, in this last year, we took the time to look at the projects that were funded in the first year of Team Up, and now we're into the second year of Team Up projects. And one of the things that we are trying to adapt the way we communicate about bridge building is to make sure that people understand that the emphasis is on commonality, right? That people are different and differences should be respected. And we aren't asking people, like in this conversation, no one is asking anyone else in this conversation to modify the approach or the vision of their own faith. But we all are recognizing that in that difference that we experience in our faith traditions, we have the opportunity to come together across that difference because the values that we share with each other and the beliefs that we hold in common about respect for people and the common good and the desire to improve our communities and improve our families. Faith is a very, very powerful motivator. So many of the volunteers who are working in the various projects that are being implemented across the country volunteer because they have a faith tradition. And that's really an important aspect of bringing people together because you speak from that lens of who you are as a person and what you value as a person. So that's a kind of a brief, because I could go on, but I know that there are other people who want to speak today.
And I think people can visit the Team Up site. There's good resources there and examples. Sister, you're part of the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, which is a great asset to the community and involves grassroots organizations. What have you seen effective in that? And because that also involves collaboration.
Well, I think that that's the piece is that we don't we call it the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, but that doesn't mean that you have to be Catholic to be funded. What you have to do is share the values that we share. And I think that what's happened in this community is that we have some really small grassroots efforts that don't have the wherewithal. They don't have the bandwidth or the development department or someone to write, grants and to gather all the data they need, but they have a vision, they have a mission, they certainly are accomplishing their goals, but then how do we help them with that? So from my perspective, that to me is the greatest value of the Campaign for Human Development. I mean, we talk about this, the bishop's campaign to end poverty. Oh, that we should be so fortunate to end poverty. But again, I think that we have to do that on a case-by-case basis. We have to do it at the borders, at the periphery, if you will. Who are the people who don't have access, and how do we help them to then have the wherewithal to promote their work? So that to me is one of the major strengths of the Campaign for Human Development.
You think the website is cchd.org? I'm guessing. I don't know.
Well, except that things are in kind of a rework, if you will. I think that I'm not sure what the status, I should have checked that this morning, but they're redoing their website, they're redoing their grant process. Okay. And so it may be there. I can tell you that the Archdiocesan website is under construction because I think it's important that people get the right information and don't waste their time dithering around stuff that they can't do or they shouldn't do or wouldn't do. So things are in flux in Washington. Well, at the
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
say, yeah. But the UCCB is also kind of rethinking how they're administering that funding.
So does anybody have any closing thoughts or comments? And I do have one question because we've been talking about in our tradition synodality. And if anyone would like to jump in and say if there's a project or something that you've seen on that campaign of synodality that was most impressive to you. Peg or Sister
I'll
Maureen?
just hop in, and it's a not quite there yet. The Diocese of San Diego is using the synodality model to try to move forward a project that will engage the Catholic community first. So using the concept of synodality to expand out beyond the typical staffing models and to engage with various parts of the church, the Catholic Church as with a big C. And then as they create that relationship within the church, use that as a springboard to then move forward and create stronger relationship in the community. And they're basing the model that they're creating on the concept of synodality.
Rhonda, I wonder if the people who are attending would have some questions. I think we still have a little bit of time.
Yeah, we have a little bit of time. Does anybody have any questions for the panel?
I have a closing reflection when we're ready towards the end.
Okay.
Or yeah.
Great. Thank you, Cynthia.
See if I could share it. I thought it was appropriate for our discussions today. And where is it? Here it is. Okay. Can everyone see it? I'll just read it. If you can you see it okay? All right. God of the universe, we have cried out among strangers and found a brother reaching out. We have sung a song of lamentation in a strange place and heard the voice of a sister singing a song of joy in return. You have shown us family in the most extraordinary of circumstances, tied by bonds of blood and bonds of the great gift of faith, and tied by a bond that is deeper still, by the holy truth that we are all your children, your very image and likeness. Make us the brothers and sisters that Jesus calls us to be, and in fact, all of our prophets to be, sharing our portion, opening our doors, mourning our neighbors, protecting their children, and standing in solidarity with the persecuted. Bless our people, and when our own time comes, may a family beyond number call us out of the darkness into light, saying, these have been brothers and sisters to us. Welcome them, one and all.
Beautiful. Thank you. Wow. That was very powerful. Thank you,
Yeah.
Cynthia.
Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia.
Oh. That gave me a lump in my throat. But it is. So we are definitely stronger together. Peg has joined us from Tucson, Arizona. Some of us are here in Houston. Rabbi Shaw was in Canada, now back in Houston. And I'm a native Houstonian. So
I think just any final closing comments from the
please,
panel would be great. And then Rabbi, you'll close us out.
Yes. Closing.
Peg, we'll start with you since you're the farthest away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things that I reflected on, and and as some of the speakers were mentioning, the misunderstandings of their faith traditions. And I don't think we should minimize how faith is sometimes being hijacked by people who do not really either understand or incorporate the tenets of their faith into who they are and what they do. And so sometimes we just have to remember that not everyone is the best representation of that faith tradition, and they aren't always coming from a place that would be supported by those who have developed that tradition.
Maureen, any closing
I'm not
comments?
sure, I'm not sure I can follow up on that, Peg, at all. Because I do think it takes us back to where we were at the beginning of our time together. That we can't be distracted by people who propose or purport to be someone that they're not. I mean, they say they're someone, but that doesn't mean that we have to be engaged by it. So I think Peg's comment is so timely, that what we need to do is pay attention to what we know is truth, and then pay attention to how we can get the truth, and not someone's image of the truth, but how we can get the truth about other faith communities. And I think that's something, I think Wafa said it, or, if we come to know people, when I can know someone who is Muslim or who is Jewish, then I know who they are and what their faith journey is. And that's how we learn to work together, is by coming to know one another.
Morgan, would you add anything to that?
Sure. I'll say that when we went going back to the question where we talked about impact and improvement, for me, it always draws back to remaining teachable. I think we live in a society where we feel like, sometimes words can overpower each other. And regardless of how much educational background or experience, or how much we feel we know about a particular faith area, allowing others to share their perspectives in a way that is open-ended, and allowing others to speak and live their truth in a way that feels honest and pure is so important. I think we live in a society where we want to overtalk each other, or not allow enough space to really hear people through. And so for me, it's all about remaining teachable, remaining honest and authentic, and just walking in our purpose. So thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Last but not least, we'll turn it over to Wafa.
So one of the things that always struck me being in Houston is how amazing this city is. It's not one of the most beautiful, for sure, but the people there, I mean, I've had the privilege to work along with and learn from, people from all diverse backgrounds. And, these are the experiences that kind of sometimes, when it seems to be bleak and you don't see hope, and you think that the world is just full of violence and, death and, kind of anger, it just brings you back your peace, your belief in the goodness of human nature. And also I would say the work that I had the privilege to be part of with Catholic Charities in, changing the lives of immigrants and refugees will always be something that, will kind of light the way no matter what happens, and keep me hopeful that ultimately goodness will kind of prevail. Peace and love and understanding and solidarity would be what really ultimately stays with all of us.
Well, from Catholic Charities, I'll just say a thank you to all of you. Thank you, Rhonda, for moderating a great panel. Good questions to all. And we're going to close us out with just final remarks from Rabbi.
Thank you. Again, thank you to Catholic Charities for hosting and moderating the panel. Appreciate everyone's participation. I personally enjoyed listening and learning and being informed of all the good work that's taking place. I do have one thought. We talk a lot about what we have in common and how important that is. But I also want to give a nod to the differences between us. Those differences are not critical. That's why we're not just one religion and one outlook on life. We have different nuances, different perspectives on how to arrive at hopefully the same goal. So these different paths are significant, and when we are attuned to them and understand them, it helps shape how we think about our own approaches. It expands our ability to take and grasp other ways to achieve the those goals that we do share in common. So I want to emphasize that and appreciate learning today from the Islamic and Christian perspective, Catholic perspective on charity in particular. But I do want us to be mindful of that always, that that's a very important insight into who a person is, the differences that we have. I'm not talking political differences, really. I'm talking about sort of religious and different approaches to moral and ethical issues of our day. Although the political ones we can't avoid, and that's a whole nother another topic and time to enter into those. And nonetheless, I think as we go forward, we have to embrace both of those. And to me, what it means is constantly listening and being open to hearing what other people have to say, acknowledging those differences, respecting and making those legitimate. So today we've had a wonderful opportunity to share a lot of common work that we all do. And I hope as we go forward, we'll find ways to continue to collaborate, to expand on those efforts, to draw more people into our circle of caring and giving and doing. Today we did two of the three things on our theme. Our theme was walking, talking, and working together. So we've talked and we work, and I hope we'll continue to do that. So thank you all for participating. It was a joy to have all of you together today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
So Rhonda, you there? You're muted.